Hi there, this is the Method Actor Speaks. I'm John Solari, your host, and we're here today talking about the Hitchhiker Massacre with the stars of the show, John Barrymore and Calista Carradine. If those names sound familiar, we're doing part two, and they are from the original family of actors. And I want to thank both of you for coming on and doing part two. Where did we leave off on? We were talking, you know what we were talking about, John? We were talking about families.
Yes, we were talking about both of my parents were actors, and that's my excuse. Which is to say, both of my parents were children. And you had an actor and a dancer, is that right?
My mother was a choreographer and a dance teacher, and her father was a musician. He played just about everything.
And of course your dad was an actor.
An actor and a musician and a director and a producer and a writer.
Yes. So, being an actor with no marketable skills, I told my father, well, I might as well try this. My family had always done it. And he dumped me off, put me in the care of Calista's father where I stayed for the next 2 or 3 years. It was between seasons 2 and 3 of Kung Fu. He was the biggest star on television and had just given an interview to the Rolling Stone where he mentioned that he had a listed phone number. Now, that phone, every time you put it down, it rang. As soon as you put the phone down, it rang.
Yeah.
So, but yes, it was quite a. So I lived with Calista's dad from
David. You were talking about David.
Yes, from like 19 to 22, and you spent some time with my father, didn't you?
I did. We traded fathers for a while.
Yes.
We did.
Really? That must have been interesting.
It was.
Yes, interesting, as in that Chinese curse, may you live in interesting times.
Your father was somewhat like a shaman.
Exactly like a shaman. Exactly like a shaman, in that 80% of what they say or 90% is complete lunacy, craziness.
No, but it's all possible, actually. And these technological... No, it isn't.
But the other 10% is the kind of heavy, serious truth that people sort of know but nobody ever talks about.
Right.
And you go, wow, that guy's heavy, and it sucks you in for the other 90%. And that is how the shaman operates in an indigenous culture. And I used to say to Pete, it's too bad because in indigenous cultures, that man is revered as a holy person.
I think we all saw that in him. And the moments of complete lunacy, they actually were facts. You can listen through the pipes.
Yes.
No one was.
And those mushrooms from the lawn will... Oh, the emergency room. Well, that one didn't work out exactly right.
That didn't work out.
My father, it's a good thing that he had been friends with Krishnamurti, who was Krishnamurti was head of the CEO of a religion. He was the prophet, the whatever, and he dissolved it. And warned, he said, you cannot organize spiritual truth. It's as individual as the individual. And it's a good thing my father was friends with Krishnamurti because he could have gone the cult leader route because he had the charisma and the ability to make people do things against their own best interests that cult leaders have. Fortunately, however, he knew better, and when Jim Baker turned the Source restaurant into the Brotherhood of the Source, he called him the guy who stopped eating meat and started eating people.
Your father did say, I am not a guru, and that there should be
no
gurus.
Exactly.
He was against the guru, and most good gurus will tell you
but he still got
there
used
should
those
be
poison
no
mushrooms,
gurus.
didn't he?
Well, they were very big.
He ate
then,
them too, in all fairness, he ate them too.
Really?
That was foolish. That was foolish. Do not eat mushrooms off the road. They told me if I hadn't been a vegetarian, I would have died that night.
Oh, God.
Yes.
Is that true?
Was
yeah.
absolutely foolishness.
Yeah, mushrooms can be very dangerous if you don't know
Yes.
what they are. Because there are a lot of
He said they were food. Anyway.
Yes, and Calista, to her credit, her and Patrick Culleton,
Who played my husband in Monohari.
Yes, they on their way to the emergency room, she said, well, we'd better stop and get John.
And I climbed through I got into your pad and went out your window and jumped across to his windowsill.
Or it was a Casa Real?
The windowsill, from one windowsill to the
other.
other.
That was Casa Real. Yeah.
And jumped into his apartment to rescue him. He did not want to be rescued.
Yes, he was.
He said, I can't do it the way you would be able to do it. Let a man heal himself if he can.
Yeah. He was sitting on the toilet naked in the dark.
He was. I can still see it to this day. He survived. We were very worried. In the morning, we were all wearing white the next day. I went to the hospital with Patrick Culleton, and I had my daughter Mariah with me, jumping up and down on my stomach, which I really didn't need. And
he had his stomach pumped, right?
I don't know. They wanted to put needles in my arms and give me salt water and sugar water, and I just wanted nothing to do with it. So I figured,
well, Patrick had his stomach pumped. He told me.
I didn't go for any of that. I just didn't like the idea.
Anyway.
But I did go to the hospital, just to check in. Do not eat any mushrooms off the street. We had about just a sliver and almost died. Yeah. Just a tiny little bite, and we realized there was a madman telling us that these were food.
Well,
my father told me to beware of the Barrymores, but
yeah, he had a great capacity for. Of course, there's another one. Your father. I mean, there was a guy who basically was the eye in a hurricane of chaos, and somehow it usually didn't touch David, but everybody around him got swept up in it. I recently organized a reading for a friend, a script reading, and the author flew out from New Mexico, and it went very well. And afterwards, this woman said to me, "Was your father the guy with that?" And I said, "Let me stop you right there. What did he do to you? You met him once and never forgot him as long as you lived." "Well, I was 7 years old at a party in Rome, and he brought a Great Dane there that bit me." And that was just a typical story. I had never met anybody who forgot that guy, no matter how briefly they met him.
What was the first film you did with my father?
Americana.
Ah, I did the song in that.
Yes, I know.
Yeah, I unfortunately, I was still living with my mother. That was right before I met you.
The reason I did the last 4 episodes of Kung Fu was they had hired an actor, a Tony-winning actor, and fired him the first day. And so they were burning. They had to get somebody right now. And I was up in Fremont.
Visiting me?
Yes, visiting you, exactly. And they called me up, and I said, "Oh yeah, I guess maybe I could get down there tomorrow." And they said, "No, we have the plane is waiting. Get on it."
That was the last 4 episodes of Kung Fu. The
yes.
very last.
They did a 4 episode. Like when
the
fugitive got the one-armed man at the end, only they stretched it out for 4 weeks, right?
4 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that was a delight because I got to work with Leslie Nielsen. This was before he started lampooning himself for money. He was always like that.
He was always serious. Yeah,
he was a practical joker. As soon as they said cut, he was he was a very funny guy. And Lois Nettleton, who was gorgeous. I mean, I was 20.
God rest his soul.
Yes, boy, that was my first heavy, older woman crush. Yeah.
I remember her from actors. She was a member of the Actors Studio.
Yes.
She used to come all the time. What a gift she was.
One of Old Blue Eyes' ex-girlfriends.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, she did one of his movies. Yeah. Yes. But she was a gift.
And the next film you did with my father was?
The next film was Monahari.
And your dad did a Kung Fu. He did a great job.
Yes, my father did one in the 2nd season. And
tell the audience who your father is.
My father's John Barrymore Jr., also known as John Drew Barrymore. Actually, Drew was the name that Mom and Dad had picked out for me. And at the last second, Dad decided he didn't want to be John Jr. anymore. So when my son, John, he's 28 now, he just turned 28. When he was 25, I think he said, "Why did you name me John?" And I said, "Son, do you know..."
I've heard this, and I'm not going to let you continue. And
do you know what rolls down now?
So then, let me see. So were you in Country Mile?
No, but Country Mile was shot in the same time frame as Americana.
So he did Americana, Country Mile, and You and Me, my father did.
You and Me he had done before we met. And then
and then did my grandfather and your grandfather ever work together?
No, my grandfather assisted your father with his screen test.
What?
Yes, your dad used to love to tell this story. Your grandfather used to love to tell this story. He was doing a screen test, John Carradine, and my grandfather offered to assist him with it, and he had changed his name to John because he. Remember that night when he came and said, "Did I ever tell you how my name became John Barrymore?" Oh, that's a much more interesting story. We were at your dad's. You were there in Malibu, north of Zuma Beach.
Okay.
And the bartender from the Crazy Horse dropped off John because
My grandfather.
your grandfather, he said, he's in no shape to drive. So he is, as usual, impeccably dressed. And he takes his shoes off, his silk socks, and his jacket. He puts it over a chair, and he lies down on the couch. And he says, "Did I ever tell you how my name became John Carradine?" No. He said, "I was born Richmond Reed Carradine, but my mother always called me Peter. I never did find out why. When I became an actor, I chose the name Peter Richmond. At some point he went back to Carradine, and he said, when I met your grandfather, I had such admiration for him. Oh no, that's right, first he met my, he said, when I met your grandfather, I had such admiration, I changed my name to John Peter Richmond. And eventually he went back to his real name of Carradine and became John Carradine. And at this point, just like Dracula, he puts his arms like this on the couch, and I said to him, "Shouldn't you loosen your tie?" And he went, "I'm quite all right. I went to sleep on that."
That is a lovely story.
That's a great story.
Which, by the way, I had worked with him on a low-budget, movie in New York, and he took any job that was on the phone. He said, "It doesn't matter. They'll remember Stagecoach and The Grapes of Wrath." And he was right. And that's why when James Bills called me to do Hitchhiker Massacre, I went with the John Carradine school of take any job that's on the line if you're not working already.
Look, you star in the film, okay? And this man, James, makes things happen quickly, and he does them well.
And he's a practical joker too. He got me good on this one. And he's an easygoing guy. When I direct, and people start getting uptight because we're later, we lost a day or whatever, I always go, "Relax. It's show business. There's no lives at stake. We'll adjust. I'll make do with less." And James is the same kind of guy. He's
James is a gentleman, and he knows that this is something that sells, and it sells to a younger crowd. Now, I was thinking about the reason these kind of things sell to a younger crowd. Younger people, blood and gore and death are things they have not encountered, and so it's mysterious, it's very Halloween-like. When we were young, we liked the song Yesterday. What did we know about yesterday? Heartache and despair, these were things that fascinated us because we never felt them. When you get a little older, these things become real, and we don't really enjoy watching these things as much.
A Day in the Life was my favorite Beatles song.
Well, you were always a little different.
Yes.
And you were also a little older.
Yes, exactly.
And you probably already did know what yesterday was like. At least you thought you did, because I remember when you were
No,
25, you thought you were old. But
because 25 is a big, psychological milestone. 25 and 50.
I would like you to tell me the story about my grandfather and your grandfather not working together.
Oh, right. So my grandfather said that John Carradine,
right,
they're both John, of course, should go into the room where they were doing a screen test, and pantomime that he just had a delicious meal. And so your grandfather, he did this and did all the stuff. I think it was silent. They were shooting MOS.
Wow.
And
it wasn't a silent movie though.
No,
okay.
But they were shooting MOS, and then my grandfather came out the same door and zipped up his fly.
I thought you said that he coached him.
No, that was it. He was playing a practical joke.
Oh, I see. Oh, that's terrible. That's just terrible.
Yeah, your grandfather loved telling that story. So.
And you worked with my grandfather more than you worked with my father?
I just worked with him on that one film, which was Nocturna, Dracula's granddaughter. Okay. Which the main cast were I don't know, the producer's girlfriend, and the film turned out to be a laundry. The lawyer who set up the deal wound up dead. But the supporting cast was Brother Theodore, Yvonne DiCarlo, and John Carradine, who was playing Dracula in the same suit he played it in since the 30s, because he never put on an ounce.
Now, he did that with Bela Lugosi as well.
He did?
Didn't he?
No, I don't think
Dracula?
so. No,
my grandfather.
Your grandfather did 10 movies in 10 weeks once for Universal. Mm. Right, we shot Hitchhiker Massacre in 6 days, and oh, well, okay.
Well, today
Actually,
today they do that. I mean,
Yeah.
6 days is.
Fred Ellen Ray. I mean, I was doing that for Fred Ellen Ray when we were using film, shooting films in 6 days.
Now, I did 3 films with Fred, but we didn't do one together because you got me my first
Were you
film
in,
with Fred.
Were you in? Let me see. Hybrid? No, you weren't in that. Masseuse?
Nope.
Inner Sanctum 2?
Nope.
There's one other one I did for him.
I did Fugitive Rage, Secret Santa, and Invisible Mom.
No, I
Or was
wasn't
it?
any of those. No.
Or no, Mom's Out of Sight. I'm sorry.
Anyway, but your grandfather was doing the same thing. He made 10 films in 10 weeks once for Universal because it was the horror film factory.
Right.
Right. And yeah, and he although I did a John Carradine-like character in Gary Graver's film Trick or Treats. Basically, it was I was basically channeling John Carradine.
John Graver was
Gary Graver.
Gary Graver, I'm sorry, was an exquisite cinematographer. And didn't he invent the Steadicam?
No.
No?
No.
Haskell Wexler.
I have no idea
invented
who
the
his
Steadicam,
but
Haskell.
he was Gary did a lot of films for Corman and low budget.
Roger
fast.
Corman, yes.
Yeah, this was the first film he directed, and a friend of mine called me from North Carolina. He said, I just turned to Charlotte and said, this is the worst movie I've ever seen, and then you came on.
I got my SAG card from Roger Corman. And I got my Social Security card on Bound for Glory. We were doing a really big scene with a lot of people playing guitar, because when I was young, you taught me how to play guitar, and so I sat and played guitar and sang. And huge scene with a bunch of, I was a migrant worker. It just,
Yeah, that was Gary's film I was talking about, but Corman, he's been very active on Facebook lately.
Has he?
I know, I'm stalking him on Facebook for a job. He'll put something up and I'll put on a link to something that I've done. I keep trying to get him to give me a job.
Yes, he was so. I was astounded when I met Roger Corman because I only knew his reputation. I never met him, and he was so erudite and soft-spoken, and I expected a guy with like Sam Arkoff, a guy with a cigar, a complete antithesis. Anyway, he said on Facebook recently, he said, "Should I do a steampunk movie?" And I said,
Yes.
I said, "You already did, Roger. You ever see his version of Frankenstein? That was a steampunk movie."
I guess I would.
He gave a lot of actors their start.
I love
It's
Frankenstein.
not just actors, producers.
Producers, directors, yeah. He was a.
James Cameron started with
Okay.
Corman.
What was your first film?
Americana. Oh, my first film. Well, my first film it was Americana.
No, you played Baby Moses.
That wasn't a film. It was live TV. Hallmark Hall of Fame, 1954. I was 3 months old, and my father was playing Moses, and I played Baby Moses, and I was recently at the Writers Guild they did a documentary on Tony Curtis, and my mother was in the only film Tony was ever nominated for. It was also the only film she was ever nominated for.
Your mother's name is?
Carol Williams.
What was the film he was
The
nominated?
Defiant Ones.
Oh, really? That'd be right.
Yeah, she's the only woman in the film. The part was the woman. But Stanley Kramer directed that film, and it was the only nominee Tony ever got. But his widow, Karen Kramer, I showed her the picture from that 54 Hallmark thing. She said, "I worked on that show."
Really?
That very episode of that Hallmark Hall of Fame show.
We were
It was
talking
live TV.
about
There's
him.
No, yeah, just went out and that was it.
We were talking about him, I think, on one of our shows with you, that Tony Curtis, he was never really recognized, that he was really a great talent.
Yes, and
His daughter, Kelly Curtis.
never recognized by his peers.
Piers.
Yeah,
Kelly Curtis,
the public recognized
his
him
daughter,
for it, yeah.
Absolutely.
is a member of the Actors Studio. Kelly.
Yeah.
What a talent she is, but she's not working lately.
Yeah. A lot of us aren't working lately. At least certainly not enough.
Well, it's
So now my grandfather also played Moses, and your father played
Really?
Moses. Yeah.
well.
He's played Moses.
Got a lot of
What
Holy
was-
Moses there.
What was your second film?
Well, what was the one you really enjoyed doing the most? That's a good one. And which one didn't you like?
Okay, that's good.
That's it.
I don't think I ever didn't like any of them. Oh, Well, you know, there was that time I kicked in the door of your father's Trans Am, but that was just because it was cold. There was no, you know, there was no trailer or anything. Or even like it was. It's a long story, but
You were whining like a baby. Man up.
okay, yes,
I
exactly.
think my father tried to bite your nose up in
Yeah, that's
upstate New York.
no, that was here. So he tried to bite me. He didn't try to bite. He could. If he tried to bite my nose off, he would have. He was just trying to scare me a little bit.
His
Like
version
that.
of a spanking.
Like that time he tried to throw me off that cliff in Malibu.
If you didn't stay away from me.
Exactly.
Really?
Well, you know.
Well,
It was foolish.
Yes.
So-
There's a great play that, you know what, you need to see this play. I saw the first time I ever came in contact with Tony Shalhoub. The guy who I studied with for the Shakespeare stuff, he taught at Juilliard. And we were friends, Nicholas Kepros. In the movie Amadeus, he was the cardinal, but on Broadway, I believe he played the king.
oh,
And he was doing a play, a two-person play with Tony Shalhoub, the play was called Rameau's Nephew, and it was about this guy, and that's all he's got. He's Rameau's nephew.
I just remembered two things that we did, and I don't know if there's any way to get footage of them. We did.
How long are we going to call it footage when there's no footage?
No. Oh, it was for PBS, remember?
PBS.
Yeah.
Oh, no,
I
no.
played Columbine.
Yes, that was yes.
Commedia dell'arte.
Hopefully that doesn't exist.
Okay, and then we did the musical, which I would love to see, Lorna in the Land of Time. We did in
that
New
was
York.
never videoed.
It wasn't?
Thankfully, yes.
I love
That was the
music
last
for
play
that.
we had done when Calista overheard me talking to the other actor and said, "Oh, that's a good idea. I think I'll do that."
Well, I do take direction.
But yes, but I wasn't even talking to you.
Sounded like a good idea.
It was a good idea. It was a good idea, and you did do the Can You Listen, right?
Ken Yulo.
Yulo.
Yes, I did Ken Yulo's one act, and then with his company, New York Actors Ensemble West,
Yes.
I did Rabbit Hole.
They were very
Which
smart,
is
those
a-
guys. 'Cause
really?
Yeah, but when they did the Ken Yulo, it was a bunch of short plays, and yeah, sure enough, the one we had was the one I was going to do before I went to Kenya. It was the only one that didn't have it was just serious. No, and it wasn't.
He wanted to do comedy.
Right, but it doesn't matter. I would have done it if I hadn't gone to Kenya. They gave everybody the stuff, and they said, "We'll have one rehearsal, and then Mr. Yulo will be here from New York, and we'll have one more rehearsal with him, and then you'll do it." So basically, they only had to rent the theater 3 times. It was they were very smart about the way they did this. They said, "Hey, you know what? You want to be an actor? It's your responsibility to learn these lines, get together, and rehearse the thing."
How
The
do you?
way I got involved with that was I was actually, actors work as waiters, Anyway, I was working at Jerry's Deli,
I never got
and
into
there was a
that.
bunch of these actors from the New York Ensemble West, and one of them came up to me and said, "Do you know someone that could play my father?" And I looked at the good-looking young man that looked a lot like my grandfather when he was young and said, "Actually, I do, my ex-husband." He fancied me as a cougar and asked me how old my ex-husband was, thinking he might be a child. And Tom
Tom.
Tom
He was Adam.
Boffey, yes, he changed his name. Every time he leaves the woman, he changes his name. So I said, yes, my ex-husband Tom Boffey would. He says, how old is he? He says, he's 11 years older than I am. I said, oh, perfect. So they got together, and he's a method actor, and he's very talented, actually. And
Yes, I know. That's when I met him. He was doing. That's where the fine art. Your daughter has the artistic.
Yes, my daughter
The artistic
and
and mathematical genius.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, where was I in the story? So he played the father in A Hatful of Rain, a lovely play. And my daughter, Sienna, played a part of a wealthy drug addict. And she did the poster. Really, she was hired to do the poster.
In that play.
She was hired to do the poster, and then they asked her if she would do a part, so she did a part. And she had an art show there, which I really loved. It was my favorite art show she's had, because we sat in the theater seats, and all the art was up on the stage, and then when people would come up and ask about something, she would tell you all the stories. I love the stories from the artists. I loved MTV, where you get to see the story in the head
She does
of
numberism.
the creation.
Numberism is like, you know what pointillism is? It's,
For the audience, you could tell them.
yeah, pointillism is where the picture is made from little dots, like dithering.
Looks like sand.
Like dithering in a magazine. Like if you look at a magazine with a magnifying glass. But numberism is like that, only it's all done with little teeny tiny numbers, and the numbers mean something. Like, you know, she did one on the Pythagorean comma.
This is my daughter Sienna Morris, because I do have two
Right.
daughters. Go on.
So it's what it is it's like a macro and micro at the same time.
She'll put chemical compounds. If you look very close, you'll see the chemical compounds or the scientific formulas or equations, and they're.
What is the reason for this? Is there?
Do you have the Einstein shirt with you, or is it
It's
in the
in the
car?
Oh.
But it's what's the reason for it? I don't know. But pointillism would that happen 19th century? I think that there were a lot of artists who were doing that, and it's it's a style.
What
Okay,
she's done is
that's
she's created
okay.
a way to convey
A
intelligence
style.
in what she's doing. She
Yeah.
does a thing about the heart, and if you look at the drawing of the heart, you see a thing. There's information. Yes.
You should put a link to her her cello YouTube one in the notes for this. If this is going on YouTube, right?
Right.
You should put it in the notes. You should put a link to.
Well, you're going to get a DVD of the show, so you can
probably
also
have
do
to
that.
do that.
No, but I mean, when people see it on Facebook,
Right.
if you put it in the notes, they can just go over it.
Well, you go to fleetingstates.com.
Well, also,
Is that your daughter's?
Fleetingstates.com.
Okay.
we're going to end in a few minutes here now, and I just want to promote your film again that's coming out,
Hitchhiker Massacre.
and who's in it and directing it.
And the producer's name is.
The producer's name is Yvonne Naj. Oh no,
You've worked with
actually,
before.
Jason Horton was the line producer. Yvonne Naj was the executive producer, and James Bills directed.
Jason also played a drunk, and I love the way he played that. Jason Horton played a lovely drunk in that.
Yes, he was. Yeah,
film.
we
In my opening scene, which I just adored working with him.
that was the first time because somebody, I think it was Ellie, and Adriana. They convinced him to be in the movie.
We are the older couple that owns the restaurant in this film that is full of drop-dead, gorgeous, sexy young women, and a sexy young man as well, and a sexy older man. So you should go ahead and be afraid to stick your thumb out. And
So this
see
is
the
a
women
sexy
covered in blood.
horror movie, a sexy horror
It's a
movie.
sexy
Meanwhile,
horror
I
movie.
was
That's coming out
hiking
when?
over Laurel Canyon once, and Michael Crichton gave me a ride, and nobody knew who he was yet. But because I was a fan of his books, I got it and I said, "You're Michael Crichton, aren't you?" So he wasn't afraid to pick up a hitchhiker.
Well, that was the 70s.
Yeah, people did that. When is this coming
In fact,
out?
I think it's illegal now.
No, it's not. Well, in Beverly Hills it is.
April 2014. It's
Okay, in
coming out
April 2014.
Yes.
All right, folks, I really, once again, thank you for part 2 of this, and we probably could go on for ever and ever, but
We could.
we're going to come back another time. I hope you more than welcome, because I've been blessed to have you guys come on, and I really want to thank you, Calista Carradine and John Barrymore. What a pleasure it is to meet you. I'm really honored.
And you too.
No,
Mr.
really,
Solari.
don't thank me. I thank you guys. And once again, The Method Actor Speaks is on YouTube, Facebook, and if you want to get in touch with me, you could eat The Method Actor at Gmail, or you could call me at 818-773-0991. And I really want to thank you guys again for coming on. And where is she?
Jasmine.
Jasmine.
Oh,
Can
Jasmine?
Yeah.
show her to the audience?
Come say hello,
Yes.
Jasmine.
They didn't see her for
Yeah.
the first
Jasmine,
second show.
by the way, one of those actresses.
There she
named
is.
Jasmine, and
I
it
know.
was very
There she
confusing
is. She's
on the
sound
set.
asleep.
Oh, was it?
Yes.
All right.
The
Where's
one who
Jasmine?
showed up for the rap party